Hello everyone, it is I, Mawoolar, and you're probably wondering, this is not your usual setup. I'm not in KL right now, and this is my current book nook, which also doubles as a bedside table. Today I thought it would be nice if I got to talk about Swallows by Natsuo Kirino, which is a book that I finished recently. And by recently, I mean today. Me personally, I think books about motherhood are extremely interesting. And there are a lot of books with, themes about motherhood out there that are still on my list, still on my TBR, still yet to be read, and amazing ones in which I've already read, already experienced, and absolutely loved. Swallows by Natsuo Kirino is another novel, another book with themes revolving around motherhood, the autonomy of a woman's body, challenging society's standards and views towards women. Let me start by telling you what this book is about. So, this book is about a woman named Riki. And Riki is this 20-something-year-old girl who is from Hokkaido. I would say it's not the countryside, but it's not Tokyo, is what I'm saying. She moves to Tokyo in hopes of starting a new life, but it's been very hard for her. So she's broke. She hates her job. She works as this admin person at this hospital, and basically she's sick of living in poverty, right? Life isn't so easy for her, simply said. One day she gets this offer. Her friend Teru seems to offer her, she gets an offer to become an egg donor for people who want children, but can't have them, are unfortunate enough to have them, so she should become a tool in assisted reproduction technology. She signs up and finds out that the pay is quite nice, and you still get a trip to Thailand for free, because basically the process is quite difficult to take place in Japan, so you still need to go to Thailand, you still need to go to overseas to finish the procedure. So when she goes to get interviewed by the staff who works at the center, she gets offered to become a surrogate mother. Now, a surrogate mother is a woman who gets pregnant with the child of another couple who wants that child. So they use the woman's egg and another man's sperm and ask the woman to carry this couple's baby, this family's baby. Riki is super taken aback. She's like, that's sort of using me, right? But then she finds out that the offer is really good, and then she finds out that the couple who was really, really desperate for this child, they say that Riki looks so much like the wife. This couple consists of a man who is a ballet dancer called Motoi, Kusaoka Motoi, and Motoi and his wife, whose name is Yuko. They have both been trying to have a child since forever. They're in their 40s, right? And trying for a child is really difficult, even though they've went through a lot of medication, a lot of treatments and stuff. But they still find out that Yuko is infertile. So obviously she can't get pregnant anymore. Motoi, who is very fit, he's very talented, and he comes from this line of ballerinas and ballet dancers. His grandparents were rich and also successful ballerinas. His parents were also very good dancers, and naturally he too had those genes. And initially, he was married to another woman, but they got divorced because Motoi would rather have an affair with Yuko. Even though he acknowledges that and understands that Yuko is infertile, he still wants children because he says he wants to pass down his genes. He wants to see how his lineage would continue, because he comes from, to him, or at least how I perceive it, he thinks that his genes or his lineage, I guess, is very elite. like he comes from a very long line of dancers, and naturally that DNA is already inherited inside them. So I think he thinks that his child too would inherit those good genes, right? They eventually meet up, and Ricky agrees to become a surrogate mother for the couple, and a lot of things ensue. A lot of emotions ensue. A lot of mixed feelings and hesitation, and a lot of drama occurs because of her presence as a surrogate mother, and because of this contract. I just want to say that the title, which is Swallows, really does not reflect what the story is about, like, at all. This is a translation choice that I don't really seem to understand. It does not reflect the title, the essence of the story. And I think, because one of the reasons why they decided to keep the title Swallows when it should be longer, it's because they wanted to shorten it, I guess, which in my opinion, at the expense of losing the story, the essence, and the identity of the story, really does not make it a smart choice for the readers. Because now that I've read the story, I asked myself, why is this called Swallows? Because I literally don't see any relation to swallows, like the bird. So I will talk about this issue later into the video once I've explained the themes and the story and how this book made me feel in general. There are a lot of themes of motherhood and questions about women and their identity in society and their social standing in society. So you know how Ricky is very, she's poor, she's broke, she hates her job, she's not married, she's not in a relationship. To their society, she's considered a failure, a nobody. We know from a lot of translated Japanese literature, which also talks about women's standing in society. We know that to them, a woman's worth is first judged by whether or not she has a husband or a kid, or if she's married. The second way to judge a woman's worth is by looking at her job. So when you're not successful in relationships, or when you're not even successful in the employment aspect of your life, you are pretty much considered as nobody and a failure and an embarrassment. People sort of look down on you for not having any of these aspects. And to Ricky, that is exactly what she feels. Like, she feels like everyone looks down on her. She feels ashamed to go back to her family and her hometown because she doesn't exactly have anything to show. She doesn't want to admit that she's broke because she wanted to go to Tokyo for a better life and for a better chance at meeting better people to form relationships with, but that unfortunately did not happen. This is one of the prime examples of things that Japanese women go through in their day-to-day life, where their worth is judged by social standing, social status, I guess, which is something that is very, very tiring to deal with. When this job about being a surrogate mother landed in her lap, we are introduced to so many things about people's perceptions on pregnancy, people's perceptions on surrogate mothers and assisted reproductive technology. So one of the things that I liked about this book was that it discussed how people viewed surrogate mothers, or rather pregnancy in general, as this transaction. And this has been phrased as transaction many times in the book. So they're like, oh, okay, so you give them the baby and you get the money. It's a business transaction because, on paper, even I myself thought that, it makes sense as a business transaction. Like, that's, on contract, on paper, textbook wise, that kind of makes sense, right? But then when people talk about it as a business transaction, even when they don't talk about it, like for example, Motoi and how Motoi and also Yuko react to this surrogate mother situation, they act like she's not a human, and they act like they want to control her in a way that her body now belongs to them. And I liked that this was an experience that we get to see in the book, how there are a lot of people who want to assert control over another woman's body and what another woman wants to do and does not want to do. I'm really glad that at least, even though initially they did this very restrictive things, they at least realized how bad it is and how it takes away Ricky's right as a woman, and they apologize. The surrogate mother business, I guess, is filled with stigma, right? And it makes sense because, to me, the book raises the question about how do we ensure that this surrogate mother or this job still adheres and maintains a person's rights, you know? At what point is this person simply a body for us to control? And at what point are they still a woman of their own standing, right? And I think that question is really interesting because there are a lot of situations in this book that makes you think of that question, and it makes you really uncomfortable because on one hand, you want to support women's rights, you want to support women's autonomy of their bodies, but now that Ricky is willing to sign this contract as a surrogate mother, you start rooting for her to adhere to this contract, or at least I did. I was rooting for her to adhere to this contract so that she doesn't face any more difficult consequences in the future for the sake of herself as a mother, as a biological mother at least, who's carrying the child, and for the sake of her future, where she isn't burdened with lawsuits whatsoever if anything goes wrong with this pregnancy. Because for Ricky, I feel like she was fortunate enough to meet a couple who are aware and very kind enough. They're kind enough to let her be her own person, and they're very forgiving. They're very self-aware, and they are quick to admit their mistakes. But if she ended up with another rich couple, by the way, because this is like surrogate mother, this surrogacy thing isn't cheap, right? Like, Ricky agreed to this because she wanted money, so obviously she's getting a lot of money out of this pregnancy. If she ended up with another couple that was really strict and controlling, and then they find out that she was drinking and out with other men and stuff, like, this would not go by just like that. Rich people, how much power rich people have. Like, if they're willing to pay billions or millions even for your pregnancy just to have a biological child, just so they can pass down their DNA, like, obviously they are willing to sue you for ruining the pregnancy and breaching the contract. I can confidently say that almost all of the characters are unlikable and you will feel so much frustration with every single one of these characters for what they say, what they do, what they believe in. How Motoi is the embodiment of someone who is selfish, a man who thinks that pregnancy is this fantasy, or being a dad is this fantasy, but they don't want to actually sit with their wife and deal with the hardships that she faces during pregnancy. Yuko, on the other hand, even though she's infertile, she goes through a lot of ups and downs in her relationship with Motoi because of this surrogate mother thing, and understandably so, but she does something that is extremely selfish at the end, and I won't say what, but it pissed me off so much. While these two are also problems, Ricky is also a whole set of other problems, because despite her being so desperate for money, you can still tell that she's still indecisive about this whole surrogate mother thing. Like, even though there have been procedures been done, she's getting these injections and stuff, she's getting these surgeries whatsoever, she's still hesitating on whether this is the right thing to do. And it makes me think that, wow, a lot of people really simply do not care and do not think about the weight of pregnancy, the weight of having children. Because how are you still hesitant about having this kid in your own body, this other being living inside you, and you're acting like it's not a big deal, you're acting like it's not important? People really only want the nice parts of parenthood. People want the easy parts of parenthood. They don't want to see the ugly parts and the tiring parts of pregnancy. They don't want to, talk about the pains in the middle of the night, the sickness, and the men don't want to be by their wives, and they can't abstain themselves from having sex with their wives for a whole 9 months, so they go and have affairs with other women. Like, it's very, very common. Once the child is born, suddenly everyone wants to get involved, right? Because now the difficult part of having children has passed. And it really makes me sad that these characters put so little thought into having children, put so little thought in, towards each other's partners. Motoi is extremely selfish because, Yuko is infertile, and they're like, okay, we can adopt, but I'm not sure if I can love this adopted child as I would with my biological child. And the only reason why he keeps pushing this pregnancy is because he wants to spread his own DNA. I remember seeing this one sentence about Motoi that really disgusted me. With twins, he felt like he would get to live his own life twice. No, 4 times. So, okay, now this opens up to a whole new, a whole new topic to be discussed about, and it's about parenthood, parenting, and the ideals of a parent. Because more than anything, aside from Motoi wanting, is being incredibly selfish and being incredibly freaky, incredibly weird about passing down his genes, it seems like he just wants to raise 2 mini-me's. He wants to dictate the life of his child. He starts fantasizing about, oh, I'm gonna send boy to international school and I'm gonna make him take ballet lessons, but I won't force him. While the girl, I'm definitely gonna teach her ballet and then, send her to Russia, and accompany her and give her moral support and teach her and blah blah blah. Which I guess it makes sense. Every parent that has achieved so much in life wants the best, wants success for their kids. But this one is borderline insane to me and unrealistic. It shows how selfish parents can be. Like, they want to have kids just so they can project their ideals onto them, which, as we all know, a lot of childhood trauma is caused because of this. Like, a lot of kids have unresolved issues because of parents, and they're projecting towards their kids. Oh, I didn't get to be a ballerina in life, so I guess I'm gonna make and force my kid to be a ballerina. Just like, another famous memoir, I'm Glad My Mom Died, by Jeanette McCurdy. That is a great example of a mother-daughter relationship that was extremely abusive. Her mother projected onto her to want to become a star, a famous TV actress, right? Trauma and unlearning the things that your parent has taught you is a very tedious process. So I feel like when parents who want kids so bad, they don't ever think about details like this. They want kids for the sake of wanting to be a parent, to reach the standard of a parent in the eyes of other people, in the eyes of society. And it baffles me, because why do you care so much about what society thinks? Despite us understanding and knowing that Riki herself consented to this whole process, she too is left with her own set of trauma. Understandably so. This was not an easy feat. And I definitely feel like if animals feel a loss when their babies are taken away. I can't imagine what a surrogate mother would feel like, and I'm definitely interested in learning what ways there are to cope with this loss of another being, another human that you were carrying throughout your life for 9 months. You're biologically connected to each other. Because of this trauma, she thinks to herself that she definitely cannot give birth to any child anymore, despite her initial reaction being or saying that she didn't want children anyway. But again, losing or parting with a child, grieving for a child that you carried for 9 months is not an easy process. Even if you are bound by a contract on a piece of paper, at the end of the day, your emotions and how you truly feel, how your body really feels, it cannot be bound by words on a contract, right? That's one of the reasons why Yuko says in the book, I don't remember if it was Yuko or Motoy, but they said that they're responsible for paying Riki and providing her with her needs. And Riki, in return, is responsible of managing her emotions in order to not let them overpower her, in order to adhere to the contract. So, in my opinion, this whole surrogate mother situation is a detailed look into how surrogate mothers can be seen as a transaction, can be seen as businesses, and how void of humanity and almost dystopian it can be because of how emotionally disconnected this whole affair is from what pregnancy actually is. And because of this, it led to the ending, which is something that I already expected. It made sense why she did that. Now let's get back to the issue with the title. The original title in Japanese is Tsubame wa modotte konai, which means the swallows don't return to their nests. And this can be interpreted in many ways, but just hearing the original title, you can already have a clear picture about what the story is like, right? What the story is about, how it definitely relates with the summary of the book when you first heard of the story. It means that the swallows, they don't return to the same nests again to lay eggs and stuff. So this kind of symbolism can clearly be seen in the story, how it's a metaphor for Motoi and Yuko not being able to have children, and how Riki, because of her trauma with pregnancy, she doesn't want to have children anymore. For a woman's body, when you're aging and you're just not as healthy anymore as you used to be when you were younger, in order to have children. But I guess they shortened it because swallows sounded catchier, and Natsuo Kirino's books have almost, I guess her bestsellers are all like one word utterances, like out, grotesque. Maybe they wanted to continue that trend, I don't know. Listen, I am a sucker for long book titles, so I wish we got the original title, definitely. Anyways, I gave this book, I think, a 3.5. Despite the fact that this book showed and depicted issues with parents, pregnancy, society standards of women so brilliantly, I thought that there was a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of repetition in terms of conflict. It just felt repetitive. It's like, yeah, we've been here and we're still dealing with it. You didn't have to mention it again. It made the pacing kind of all over the place. It made the pacing a little off. Sometimes it was slow, sometimes it was fast, and then we're back here because we repeated the information, and also because the characters were difficult to understand and difficult to sympathize with. It was just a little hard to connect with the characters. But then again, I could be biased because of how unlikable their decisions are. Because of that, I gave this book a 3.5. This is also my first natsuo kirino book, and I definitely still want to try reading her other stuff because I've heard good things about it. Thrillers relating to social commentary about women and their statuses in Japan. So it's really nice. I think those are excellent themes, and a lot of stories have revolved around those themes and executed it amazingly. And if you have read this book, please do tell me what your thoughts are. I would love to hear them. Would love to have a discussion with you about this book. Yeah, so that is all from me. Until then, I will see you again.